Yo. All right, my friend. Let's see here. Oh, I think I have the
Hello.
wrong. Oh, nope, we're here. I was supposed to say I have the wrong tab, but I did not. We were on the right tab.
Hello, hello.
Hello, my friend. How are you?
Hello there. I am doing very well. Um, well,
Other
you
than
didn't.
the crippling depression and existential
Yeah,
dread,
right,
but
right.
those are good.
Other than those things,
Yeah.
was that the Calamity music?
It was actually one
Took me
of
back.
my all-time favorite tracks. You might hear it tonight.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Just depends. Depends on which direction. If the group goes full chaos demons, and hijinks, or
Yeah.
if we get some, more serious moments, we'll just have to see.
Okay. Interesting.
But first things first, welcome everybody to our Friday show. It's been a while. It's been a few weeks,
Wow.
actually.
Yeah.
I was slammed, I think 2 weeks ago. No, 2 weeks ago I had the flu all week.
Right.
And then I was still feeling pretty bad the Friday after that and was also slammed with work. So we're back. And
We're back.
How are you today, my friend? I already asked you that, but coffee's good. Things are good.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good today. It's Friday. We got our one shot tonight, so I'm really excited for that. It's been a minute since I've played D&D, and
Ooh.
this will be my first time being DM'd by you, so I'm really excited for that.
Oh, man. And I don't want to say I wish there was a better setting because I don't want to make it seem like it's not going to be great, but I do wish for you and it was like a traditional table.
Yeah.
People around the table. But I am very excited for our one shot tonight. It's funny when we first talked about this idea about doing this, I was really jazzed about it and incredibly excited. And I was like, it's going to be amazing. And then it hit me yesterday. I was like, oh God, there's a lot that has to happen for this to happen. Yeah. But two, I was like, what if this is like a train wreck? All the things you naturally think of. But
yeah.
We had our session 0. Everyone chatted. I mean, it's an amazing. We really lucked out for it being a random draw.
Everyone seems great.
Yeah, some amazing people, and I think it's going to be a really fun one shot. So
I think so too, man. And I can't speak for everyone, but literally every time I DM, I got those same feelings like the night before, like stressed and nervous, and even when it was my best friends I was playing with, So
yeah.
I think that's natural.
Yeah, and even I think that's spot on. I mean, naturally with D&D, I think everyone's on the same page in terms of expectations and stuff like that. But yes, we got our one shot tonight. We had Worlds Beyond come back on Tuesday, which I don't think you've listened to it yet. But for those of you who haven't checked it out yet, very good. I haven't finished it yet, but very, very good. Taylor Moore, frankly, just gets better with age, better with time. It's very good.
That excites me.
Yeah.
I saw a little clip on Instagram. So I saw those microphones now that you were telling me about.
Yeah.
Those are huge.
Yeah.
Whatever that is. But I saw a little clip of Brennan. Did you see this clip, by the way, where he was kind of prepping them at the start of Arc 3?
I don't think so. I've seen a few. I mean, they've put out a handful, so I've seen a couple.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that important really, but it was interesting because he was prepping them, saying basically I've set the stage, you guys do what you want, basically saying that there's all these things to interact with, but we're in true home game territory now, it's on you guys, I'm not expecting anything, you take this where you want to go. So it was pretty interesting.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good thing to do with your players too, in the sense of inviting them to and we've talked about this on the channel before as well, of what makes a great D&D session. And I think sometimes it just helps players to understand that it's very much not a presentation from the DM. I'm going to give you guys a show, and as the players, your job is to react to it. But it really is a collaborative story. It's a hand-in-hand story.
Yeah.
And frankly, my favorite sessions are when something like that happens, like what Brennan said. And those players are all experts. I mean, the eagerness to indulge in a moment and really act out their character.
Yeah.
That's the best D&D in my opinion. So
Agreed.
having said that, we do have a one shot tonight, and so I'm typically not much of a railroader, but I'm wondering if there will be a point where I'm like, all right, everyone stop talking, we got to keep going. Like, let's because I've never I've never done a one shot. So
you kind of have to do that in a one shot though. It's kind of a different experience, you know. Like you obviously still want to have those elements, but you're trying to tell a whole story in one session, so you kind of have to move it along.
The last one shot I was in, it took 6 months. So, and when we got to like maybe the 5th session, we were probably like 20 hours in, and the guy DMing, he was like, okay, this is the point I thought we would get to at like the start of our first session. And I was like, just now? Like we just got to that point? So, it's just hard. It's hard to like keep everybody, on task, but also like when there's like room to breathe, that's like when some of the best conversations and dialogue can really happen.
Yeah.
So I always get bummed in my sessions when there's like a compelling, because we have a pretty, one of my groups has a pretty rigid stopping point at 9 o'clock. And so it's always tough, like when there's that moment that happens like at 8:55 and like you want to let it breathe, but you're also like, we gotta go. So, which happened this last week because my wife's character died in our campaign.
Yeah.
So, and I was a bit surprised. She was actually really upset about it.
Well, yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, so upset. Like
been playing for years now, right?
Right. Yeah, for 2 years. Yeah. Not upset at me, but just like. I was surprised. Like it almost felt like she was mourning a little bit, and
I mean, understandably, I think. So that's the first campaign, right?
That's the one that's been going for about 2.5 years. Yeah.
Yeah. Any accidents last night's session?
No. Last night's session. It's funny how like tables get more familiar with you in time. Because the group I've played a long time with, like anytime there's like a meaningful moment, I almost have to like bring the group back down because there's so much like familiarity and like joking, and like it can be kind of hard to have a serious moment in that group. Yeah. The second group, they don't know each other that well. They've been playing probably for about 9 months, and they're still like in that honeymoon phase where like literally anything I could do, it's cool and epic and like, no way, you know?
Yeah.
I could have like the most immersively cool thing in the other group and they'd be like, okay, yeah, well, anyway, so we're going to go like down this tunnel. And so it's kind of fun to experience both sides of it. So anyway, but no big crazy moments in last night's group. So not yet, but, well, having said that, did you watch Critical Role last night?
I did.
Did you watch all of it?
I did.
Oh no, something happens. if you watch the whole episode, now I'm like, man.
Avoid all social media if you can.
Oh no.
I know, I was worried about this. I was like,
I peeked at the live. Too long. I peeked at the live chat, but didn't. It wasn't anything. It was like maybe it's when I finished my session last night, so it would have been about 2 hours in, I guess, and
like right before the break, probably.
Yeah, right. But anyway, there wasn't anything in it interesting. But then I was like,
it was a good episode.
Yeah, okay. Oh, I really want to see it now. I'm not. It sucks.
Look it up.
I'm legitimately not going to have time to watch it, any of it today, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So that's a bummer, but well, it's good. It's a good episode. The campaign's gotten pretty good recently.
Yeah.
So, well, I guess Film Addict's not here in chat today. I'm used to greetings from Thailand. You know,
the Thai food question,
Thai food reminder. We did get a question in our D&D channel. I don't know if you saw it, or maybe it was might have been in the Pixelbits channel. I can't actually click on it because it'll take us away from the video cam. But actually, let me open them up on mobile so I can at least say who asked the question.
Let's see.
Okay.
Oh, I see it.
You see it?
From Kikia. I don't know if I'm saying that right.
Yeah, that's right. Are there any literary sources, fiction or nonfiction, that fuel some of your campaign storytelling, narration, plot points, beats, character backstory? Man, what a good question.
Yeah.
I think I almost feel like there's two sides to this question of like, one is like the style of storytelling. Like, is there content that you appreciate that matches your style? And then the second one is, are there actual like maybe story beats or like even tropes on like a more 30,000 foot view standpoint that informs your creativity? Do you have an answer by chance, or you want to think about it?
I mean, certainly, right? Like, I feel like I've absorbed things from everything that I've kind of taken pieces of here and there. I'll say there's nothing like, I don't know the intent behind this question, but there's nothing like specifically where I'm like Lord of the Rings and I'm like infusing that consciously into it. But it's more so like little things, like a little character trait from like a character I really like, and I'll take that on for like an NPC or my own PC, right? Um, so I so everything really, like I feel like I'm grabbing little things here and there, but again, nothing like really hardcore specifically. Like I really want to just copy paste, you know, the plot of Lost season 2 into this into this story hook type of situation.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think I'm similar in that. You know, one thing we've talked about before on the show is that there's really nothing new under the sun.
right.
And I think sometimes as creators, we're a little bit too hard on ourselves to create something new and innovative. And there's like pressure to be like the first one to have an idea for something. And I think sometimes taking that burden off yourself as a DM is really healthy. Only because even sometimes when you think you're being creative, it's, you know, a latent memory you don't even remember of something you saw, or someone else has done it. You know, I in my campaign last night, there are these like super soldiers. They're called Green Knights, and they're the best way to think of them is they're like judicators from campaign 3. And there's only 12 of them. So it's kind of like a Knights of the Round mixed with judicators. Well, there was one in the session last night, and after it was over, one of my players was like, hey, have you ever read, I think like it was like maybe a comic book or something, but it was like, have you ever read this comic book? And I was like, no, I've never heard of it. And he's like, oh, okay, there's a villain who's literally like to a T, almost exactly like these Green Knights you've created. Which I've never seen it, so I didn't like rip it. But like even other things that I've come up with, I had something I came up with. I don't remember what it was. It was like a spell I literally just invented and homebrewed. And someone was like, she was like, oh, that's exactly like Harry Potter, and had a name of like a spell from Harry Potter, which I didn't know. Point being, even when you think you're being innovative, your players are still going to like grab on and pull ideas.
Right.
And I think it's just healthier to just embrace that than just be like, no, I didn't. You know, I'm the I'm the only one.
100%.
So
there really is nothing new, even if it's an organic idea to you. Like somebody's probably done that before.
Probably the most blatant like rip that I will do is I will take things that were really meaningful to me and repurpose them. So my players in one of my campaigns, they basically ended up in a future timeline, and the way to get back is they found a mirror that they could use to go back to their previous time. And it's exactly the same concept of Link to the Past, which is when you go to the dark world versus the light world, or the future versus the present, Link uses the mirror to go back and forth. And so it's totally from that concept. But playing as a kid, I thought it was like the absolute coolest thing in the world. And then I even had this little hand mirror that I gave the player for it. So I mean, that's a pretty blatant ripoff. Will the players know that? Probably not, but it's totally like fanfare for me to do things like that. So,
I think, and honestly, I think that's what everyone does, even if they don't admit that that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
You know, like everyone's stealing from what they enjoyed.
Yeah. What's your storytelling style? Because I feel like we played a while, but I feel like we never really got to, I don't say the shoe dropping, but like the fulfillment of a few different arcs you had cooking. What's your style? Like are you more Game of Thrones, or are you more maybe traditional high fantasy? I mean, and maybe even those aren't even too good divides to point out, but what's your approach to storytelling?
It's a good question. I don't know if I could put like a nice clean framework on it, but I guess for that campaign at least, is that like the tone, if you will?
Oh, that's I think that's a better way to describe it. Yeah. Tone.
I was probably going for more Lord of the Rings than Game of Thrones, just since it was kind of all of our first times, and I wasn't trying to like be a dark edgelord. But that's not the. And I like Game of Thrones. Don't get me started, but
except for season 8,
I soured on it. But that's not to call. Not to call Game of Thrones like edgelord, because it was fantastic for most of it. But yeah, I think I wanted to like not be that dark, but there would definitely be like dark elements. I mean, your backstory in particular was, I don't know if dark is the best word, but it definitely wasn't like happily ever after,
Right.
But I would say like on the whole, a bit more like classic high fantasy, but there were definitely going to be some kind of like jabs here and there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I mean, and maybe honestly didn't have too many I didn't really think about overall tone, which maybe is dumb, but I was more so just crafting like the world, and then by inserting y'all's backstories into it, that kind of informed like the larger picture that was being painted.
And I think it's a great insight on why it's valuable to encourage your players to do a backstory. A lot of times, I think you and I we're creators in the sense of like we want to homebrew. A lot of people are totally comfortable like, it takes place on the Sword Coast, and it's near Baldur's Gate, or whatever. I don't actually know if Baldur's Gate's on the Sword Coast, so please don't you do it in chat, guys. But anyway, and that's fine. I think you and we just love the feeling of creating something, and and so in doing that, again, as a DM, it can be a really massive task to create all the towns and like areas and things like that. So to your point, your players giving you even like a basic backstory can often like help you place like, oh yeah, that town is going to be over here, and they just created it for me. And I found that to be a lot easier than like, let me develop all the factions, across this continent. So
yeah, totally. It's kind of impossible to do that, really. Or if you do it, then it's not that much of a collaborative story anymore.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's a great point. Because your players, I think, are excited to see their things in the story. So in the one shot we did, which ended up being a 6-month thing, one of the players was from like this kingdom. I think it was Oneria was the name of it or something. And it was known for like all of like their trade goods and luxury goods. And he was kind of a traditional bard, like very charismatic, Chris Pine-esque kind of character. Well, it was in the same world as my campaign, and that was probably like over a year ago. Well, they're at this festival, and I mentioned that they had Onirian coffee that had been brought in. And he was
That's
like,
cool.
no way. And so like that little detail, which he created, like bringing that in, I think for players that it's like you said, it helps them really feel the collaboration of it, which is really fun.
Yeah,
So,
totally. I love that. Those are those like tiny little moment is we can like make a player love a session, you know, and easy to do.
yeah, and
So yeah.
And, to each of our, those you DMing, you can also give yourself a break too, because there's plenty of times where, I know for me, I create like these important characters, and then my player's like in the session, like, what was that person's name? And I'm like, what was the king's name? It's a good question, I'm just like scrambling through my notes.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, that's part of it, man. What, what tone, if you have one, would you say you kind of go for?
Oh man, I think you made a really great insight in that it's not necessarily something you set out from the get-go, but maybe you kind of realize it retrospectively. Yeah. I think I'm more Game of Thrones than Lord of the Rings. I'm honestly a massive fan of Brennan Lee Mulligan's style and how relatable and grounded he makes stories feel. I'm not at all good at that, but that is just something I personally resonate with. And then also I'm really, I've brought this up on the show many times, but Dorian's Robbie Damon's tweet about he had a tweet about evil characters, and just for the sake of people listening, if you don't know the tweet, he basically talked about, there aren't like good and evil characters, but essentially characters whose motivations drive them to do evil things. And we've seen this like come up in the conversation of what made Thanos such a compelling villain. My tone, I'm very keen on having gray characters who make decisions that are, for better or worse, at least understandable. Now, I've maybe leaned too much into that because literally any NPC that gets introduced, my party is like immediately suspicious of them. But yeah, so that's probably like my approach is not Game of Thrones in the sense of like there's always like a tragedy, but definitely like it feels, I like it when it feels relatable. But there's also been like some darker moments where we had a session where Joy, my wife, was like, I'm like legitimately disturbed that you came up with this. I was like, yeah, I don't know.
Ashley tells me that all the time because I share. I don't know if they're not necessarily intrusive thoughts, like like where you like want to jump off the building when you're up there or whatever. But like, I think it's like part of having like that kind of creative mind where you're thinking of things like I can't think of a good example right now, but I'll be like, what if
you share something like
exploded right now? And she'd be like, what's wrong with you?
You share something like actually extremely dark, and like I just get like really silent. All right. Just laugh. Yeah. No, I think it's all great insights. But well, anyway, having said that, I guess we'll see how well the tone lands tonight for our one shot. Just a reminder for everyone watching, we have a one shot tonight. It's only in the Discord, only for tonight. It won't be on YouTube. It won't be shared anywhere. So if you want to come join us for that, there's an event in the Discord. It starts at 7:00 Central Time, and we end by 1 a.m. tonight. And hopefully everything that needs to happen happens. Having said that, we got Worlds Beyond coming up soon and Critical Role, which I apparently need to watch.
Yeah, you need to watch that and avoid spoilers.
Okay.
And that's all I'll say for now.
All right. Well, we love you all very much, and thanks for watching today. And we will catch you later.
Yeah.
See ya.
See you tonight, hopefully.